of the Hunter Valley Dance Ensemble. Travelling to different schools throughout the Hunter Valley, the dance company aims at introducing school children to movement using the theatre. Many children took the opportunity to participate in the workshop, which allowed them to experience firsthand the movement of creative dance as well as miming exercises. A special treat for the audience was the return of Melina Chadrian, a former student at the school. At 19, she's already been dancing for the past 14 years. How do you think the children benefit from the workshops that you've been giving them?
I think it gives them a good outlook on dancing, and otherwise kids just think, oh, there's only classical dancing and not everybody likes classical, and it kind of explains to them the different forms of dancing and the character and the classical and all the different forms of dance.
What are your plans for the future?
Well, I'd like to go overseas, but I don't know how that'll go. And later on I'll probably like to teach dancing.
The Charlestown Residents Group is implacable in its determination to prevent this house in Conrad Close from becoming a home for juvenile offenders. While they do not object to the concept of halfway houses, they fear for their families and their property if the juveniles move in. Earlier this week, the residents were told that the contracts for the sale of the house to Youth and Community Services had been exchanged and there was nothing they could do. Now they have received legal advice that the project will contravene zoning laws.
Under the State Environmental Planning Policy number 9, it states that the state government cannot place a hostel in our region. By definition it is a hostel, and by definition the building would be unsafe.
Now I believe that Frank Walker has sent you a letter saying that he is reviewing the decision.
Yes, we received the letter through Mr. Face, where we're very pleased to get the letter. It indicates that Mr. Walker will be reviewing the situation, and from the tone of the letter we would expect a very sympathetic judgment in our favour.
Dr. Huxley, congratulations.
Dr. Huxley was obviously pleased with his appointment last night, which confirms him in the principal's position. The job became vacant when Dr. Eddie Richardson died suddenly last October. The position was advertised throughout Australia and overseas, and 16 applications were received. In the end, though, the College Council decided Dr. Huxley was the outstanding candidate.
Well, I feel very proud that the college has placed its confidence in me. And
will the college see any change in direction under your leadership?
well, I don't believe that they will be changes which will be attributable to my leadership, but they will be changes which will take place because the college has realised that it needs to expand its offerings, expand the opportunities that it provides for young people in the valley, particularly into the areas of business studies and applied science, technological studies.
And you will be setting up a school to do that?
Well, we hope to be able to set up a school as soon as we can find the resources which will allow us to do that. We hope that the school will start off in the area of business studies, and then after that we'll move into some of the scientific areas, things like occupational health, for example, which are very important in areas like Newcastle.
Disco Landy looks to have got the jump at the start. Little Angel 2 moving up inside Blondie. Little Angel 2.
Prize money and the prestige of simply winning. The program involves 50 races in classes
Flag
from
still
25
flying.
horsepower to unlimited.
They're racing.
Perhaps
They're
the highlight
away.
will be Sunday's New South Wales Unlimited Displacement Championship. Carter defending the title. Steamboat racing enthusiasts, the Queen's birthday weekend at Toronto has always been a must, and this one promises to be no exception.
occasion.
Nearly 80 boats will compete over the weekend, from the small but speedy 25 horsepower boats like these
From
to the
Team Wing Boat,
7-litre machines.
Midnight Enemy is the
The
next
main
one.
event of the regatta is the Allen Hemel unlimited stunt and 3-day point score, which will feature giant meters. In this event, most interest centred on the clashes between the outboard boats like Mirage and the inboards like the record-breaking river of the bridge-to-bridge Shamrock. The action continues tomorrow and on Sunday at 10 a.m. When the sun went down on the International Sports Centre last night, a crowd of more than 8,000 people had poured into the grounds to watch the fireworks spectacular. Buses and cars packed the car park, and people were still pouring into the grounds well after the show began. The grandstand was full, and a few brave spectators battled the cold conditions and watched from viewpoints on the hill. The night's entertainment began with a performance by the Newcastle Police Citizens Youth Band, and shortly after a rendition of our national anthem, the spectators were given their first taste of the action with a fireworks display. More than $6,000 of fireworks were let off, and they made the household fireworks look very tame in comparison. One of Australia's foremost daredevil stuntmen, Dar Davies, then came on to do his bit. After several laps of wheelies and some small but spectacular stunts, Davies lined up the opposition and performed his main stunt, a jump over 15 cars. The crowd returned to their seats and it was time for one more series of fireworks. Organisers say they're delighted with the roll-up last night. Despite the wet weather earlier in the day, a large number of Novocastrians showed once again they prefer one big fireworks spectacular to the more traditional backyard cracker night. The proceeds from the spectacular will go to the NBN Cancer Appeal.
If the government was silly enough to do something like that, then of course there'd be great ramifications for the quality of education in Australia and also of course for the students. It would mean a return to the situation of 30-40 years ago when only the well-to-do could come to colleges or to universities.
Universities will also be affected by the report's recommendations. Vice-Chancellor of the Newcastle University, Professor Don Torres,
Well, I think undoubtedly they'd decrease,
would create further
but
problems
more
for those
importantly,
already
will
struggling with
rally
financial
round and help
difficulties.
them, but our impression is that a very large number of our students are not very well off. Their families would not be able to pay the fees, and so I fear that the introduction of fees would seriously disadvantage a lot of people.
How does the Australian education system rate as compared to overseas education?
One is constantly trying to make resources work harder and to improve standards, and I think that's going on. But in terms of the relative standards, our graduates are accepted in all parts of the world and are seen to be very well trained.
The male driver of the car and female passenger were tracked for 25 minutes after they collided with a coal truck about 2:30 this afternoon at the intersection of Northcott Drive and Park Avenue. Ambulance rescue workers cut through the wreckage of the car. The man and woman were then taken to another hospital, suffering from lacerations and whiplash. The truck driver was unharmed. Although police and tow trucks worked to clear the car, its load of stationary equipment and the truck from the roadway, Northcott Drive will be blocked until tomorrow. The accident is the second to occur at the intersection in the past 3 weeks. A young woman later died in hospital as a result of injuries she received in the collision on the 20th of last month.
Between them, they've been the dominating forces in the game of squash around the world for more than a dozen years. Despite being forced out of the international arena for injury, Australia's Jeff Hunt is still regarded as the world's best ever squash player. 21-year-old Pakistani Jahangir Khan is the man who took over when Hunt retired. Jahangir was 18 when in 1981 he dethroned Hunt and took out the first of his 4 British Open titles. He needs another 4 though to equal Hunt. Last night's exhibition game was the second of only 2 matches between the greats in Australia. And it showed just why these men are regarded as the best in the world. It was a tight and hard-fought affair. It took more than an hour and a quarter for the current champ to defeat his predecessor. And right from the start, the pair turned on some glorious squash to thrill the appreciative crowds. Jahangir Khan raced away with the first 2 sets and led 9-3, 9-4. But Hunt showed the champion lead and came back to take sets 3 and 4. In the final set, however, it was the Pakistani Khan who finished on top and won the match 9-3, 9-4, 9-10, 6-9 and 9-3. In the 1938 British Empire Games in Sydney, Stan Millington was leading the race when a black competitor passed him. Another white competitor then also sprinted past Millington and knocked the black man down. Millington couldn't believe it.
After the race, when it was finished, I approached the black man and I asked him why he went by me. He said, I knew I couldn't win. He said, you're too fast. And I wanted to lead. He said, I led. And I said, yes, good on you. I said, you led. And the next thing, I thought I'd ask the white man. So I asked the white man why he did this to this black runner. And he said, in my country, which was Africa, he said, if he dared to walk by me in my side of the street, he said, I'd knock him down. The only action was taken was that the African was disqualified. The white African was disqualified.
But that was in 1938, Stan. Do you think things might have changed since then?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think they're just as bitter there now. I didn't bring it under the notice of the Empire Games officials at the time, which I should have. But however, I've been speaking about it for many years, and why I'm bringing it up now, I feel that if this is brought under the notice of the cricketers, that they might not go to Africa and compete.
The Newcastle Police Citizens Youth Club Brass Band gave one of its last public performances on Australian soil at the Fireworks Spectacular at the International Sports Centre on Monday night. The band leaves Australia for Switzerland on the 29th of June, where it will be the Australian representative at the World Youth Music Festival at Geneva. In much the same style as the Marching Koalas, the band members and their families have put in long hours raising the money to pay for the trip. But the 38-member band has had some recent setbacks and looks certain to fall well short of their target of $100,000.
The latest setback came only last week when the Customs Department informed officials that a $10,000 bond has to be lodged to cover the band's instruments. To cover this added cost, band members now have to pay a $250 levy. News of the levy hasn't dampened the band's enthusiasm. However, according to a spokesman for the band, Mr. Monty McLaughlin, the customs bond did come as an unwelcome surprise.
Oh, we got a very big shock to start off with, but then we decided there must be a way out, and a satisfactory way has been found.
The band hasn't reached its target of $100,000. How far short are you?
Probably $20,000 short overall. That would have been able to provide us with new uniforms and a bit more expenditure money in Switzerland, but that wasn't forthcoming, so we just had to trim the budget accordingly.
And has this shortfall dampened the band's enthusiasm?
Not at all, no way.
The occasion was the Newcastle Golf Club Associates Open Day. It saw scratch teams competing for the second annual Fern Bay Cup, a prestigious event with a field of about 175 players, 60 of whom having handicaps of 18 and less. The event certainly attracted the cream of the district's lady golfers, with 17 clubs represented. Doreen Edwards, a past district champion and the Merriweather Club champion for the past decade and a half, handicapped in sport. Top tennis player turned golfer and the Courage District champion, Caroline Affleck of Nelson Bay, shows here that even champions are human. But it was the Newcastle team that took this year's Fern Bay Cup, with Newcastle's club champion of 1984, Beverly Plowman, dressed to kill in smart red slacks, showing some of the form that took her team to victory. Young Jill Hallowell, equally suitably attired in yellow walkers, was another of the winning Newcastle team members, with the other being Jan Watkins. Best of that today went to Doreen Edwards with an 83.
The mass meeting at the Broadmeadow Police Boys Club was part of a statewide campaign organised by the New South Wales Teachers Federation. It was the latest move by the teachers in their bid to have Bega High School teacher Dick O'Neill reinstated and to have the state school staffing formulas reviewed and ultimately changed. Until now, the teachers have been unsuccessful in achieving their aims through a series of rolling strikes around the state. At today's meeting, they considered but narrowly rejected a proposal to step up that industrial action to 2 or 3 day statewide stoppages. There may, however, still be statewide stoppages, as results of mass meetings throughout the state will be presented for final consideration at the Teachers Federation State Council on Saturday. The teachers of Broadmeadow today narrowly rejected the proposal 117 votes to 114. However, they remain firm in their stance to have Mr O'Neill reinstated. Further meetings to discuss industrial action are planned.
This mass meeting excludes
Good morning everyone and welcome once again. Just how caring are the so-called caring investment advisors of Australia? Well, I've got to ask that question again and again, and let me explain why. A few weeks ago, and not far from our viewing area, I met a single parent. I think that's the best way to describe it. Now, the person concerned had been talked into, and I'm using their words, not mine, an investment. Firstly, they weren't told what the commission rate was, and of course there are faults on both sides in that particular case, but worse is to come. The salesperson, because in my view they're not investment advisors, was imploring this particular person to sell the family home and use the entire proceeds of the sale to invest, and I'll lay it on the line, in a managed investment bond. It's a product that's put out by one of our leading life companies. I'm not criticising the product for one moment, but I am very, very critical of that sort of advice, because I ask the simple question, if that advice is taken, where on earth will the family live? Rent, in the majority of cases, is wasted money, and it's simply not good enough for salespeople, just for the sake of a few extra dollars in commission, to be urging people in situations like these to sell out and invest in one particular product. I'm going to report this matter to the company concerned, providing I have the approval of the family concerned. But I just say to you once again, how caring are Australia's investment advisors? And I think it's about time something was done, either internally or externally, to tighten up the rules regarding investment advice. In some cases, they're not even required to have a licence because they're only talking about their own product. In my view, and I include bank officers and building society officers and credit union officers, and I'm talking about myself as well, everyone should be licensed. And if they're not, well then they're no longer in business. I'll see you next Monday.